Tim Kirby Russia hot takes. Russia's becoming just like America, but in a good way. Unless you're a YouTube urbanist, then it would be in a bad way. Alright, so guys, I was watching TV and and appears on the screen Prime Minister Mishustin, and out of nowhere, he just says, hey, on all homes being built in Russia, made out of wood, only wood, that cost $50,000 or less, the government's going to start to subsidize them at a rate of about 10%. And maybe in the future, even more. That's kind of interesting, because when you're looking at, like, stick frame homes being built for the masses, what country does that remind you of? And you may be saying, damn, $50,000, like, doesn't a customized, like, barn dominium or, like, I don't know, tiny house in America cost, like, at least $60,000 or $90,000? Yeah, stuff in Russia can be a lot cheaper. A lot cheaper. So a $50,000 house is a pretty generic amount of money for your sort of middle class or lower middle class family. It's the sort of right amount of money for someone who lives in an apartment with maybe 2 rooms and 3 or 4 kids to be able to make that jump to having more space and thus more sanity. Another reason they might be doing this is because, well, Russians are very envious of sort of America's suburbia. The big houses with the big cars, the big space, because if you haven't noticed, Russia is a big country with big people and big space. So it's always kind of weird how much Russia's copied Europe, especially Western Europe, when the logic of the lifestyle there is very different. So Russians really like this sort of view of that American Midwest, I guess you could say, the single-family home universe that is America. And also because one thing that I think has helped America a lot in staying stable is the fact that, every person who owns their house and owns their own little piece of America, or their own little territory of America, subconsciously kind of feels like they have a little bit of a stake in the country. People just sort of live in a random apartment that they don't even own, that they're renting from some guy they maybe see once a year. Yeah, they don't feel like they have much of a stake in the future of America, do they? And one thing is, guys, maybe if you haven't noticed, but if you look at the way people's, voting and political beliefs tend to lean, if you are in an urban environment in a coastal city, you are probably going to be living in a more liberal environment. If you are living far away from the ocean and in a more rural environment, you're probably going to be more conservative. There's this sort of greater effect that the land has on people, and that's why one thing that it's sort of believed is that since Russia is the great land empire, we can only become so liberal here because we're tied to the land. But anyways, the more people that get the heck out of apartments and urban environments, the more people there are that are going to be supportive of the certain political movements that the president of Russia and others around him support. So essentially, you're just generating future votes. And one thing, guys, is even before any sort of government intervention, there's been an explosion in home purchasing and home construction. In fact, there were 33 million square meters of single-family homage built in the first half of 2022 alone, and that was a 60% increase over the previous year. So to put that into context, okay, that's about 300,000-ish homes being built during 6 months for a population of 150 million. So essentially, with that sort of tempo, that's a large percentage of the Russian population that's going to de-urbanize real quick. That's crazy. That is a huge shift. And it's a shift that supports my theory that Russia is going to become a giant American Midwest, apparently, because people want to live outside. Because guess what? When the pandemic happened here, there were certain people who were stuck in the city because all they owned was an apartment, or maybe not even that. And then there were certain people who were lucky enough to own a house in the woods. And boy, was it a lot better being a parent with your kids in a house in the woods with his own independent water supply and all that stuff. That was a much better option. For a few people in Moscow were locked up for 3 months in their apartment with nothing they could do, and I was outside throwing the football with my kid. So guys, although the urbanists have won in Moscow, and there are bike paths in a city that's covered in ice half the year for some reason, overall, Russia's changing, and in a lot of ways it's becoming kind of more like America. So it's kind of weird. It's almost like I was born in Ohio, and I just moved to a new Ohio, where I have an idiot accent and a lower IQ because I always have to speak in a foreign language. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you like the opinions coming out of my big fat mouth, then join up on my Telegram channel. That's Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram. Link, of course, in the description.